All right, I'll give one more minute here before we get started. Get the last of the stragglers.
Don't know what's happening.
All right. Well, I think we could probably get going. I think it looks like most everybody's here that I saw on the list.
Trying to put my speaker up.
They'll just have to join us. Welcome everybody. All of our returning guests, as well as some of the newer guests to the virtual tasting. For the newer folks, I'm George Gnosis, I guess one of the owners now, and I'm joined by
Well, I don't have it
Amanda,
on.
our wine club manager. So you guys would know Amanda if you haven't seen her at the tasting room, on the phone, on the computer. She always helps everyone out who needs help to get all their various club needs satisfied. Also joined by Wes Andrew, who has
Hello.
been promoted. He is now our new head winemaker. So welcome,
Woo-hoo!
Wes. Yeah,
Well,
we're going to
thank
be
you,
doing this a
thank you.
lot. There will be an official announcement at some point here in the next month or so. But if you guys haven't met him, he's been with us now for some years. Is it 4 now?
4, yeah, something like
4
that.
years. Vinny, who most of you guys will know, has been here for over 20 years, and he is going to be concentrating on his own, I would say, side project, but it's just as big as Atwater almost, is Billsboro Winery. So he's going to be doing that solely and consulting with us a little bit, but
Want to go to speaker view?
he is going to be just doing his winery stuff now. So he'll be still here working through the next year, but Wes is taking over the operation. So I'm excited to have him taking over. And you guys should be excited too, because I think the wines are just going to keep getting better. So he'll be doing some of this, well, most of the talk about the wines, because he knows all about the wines now. I tend to be more on the back end anymore. So I will be switching over to him once we get everything going. So the club wines, if you guys have your little booklets or pamphlets with you, you can follow along. Don't feel like you have to open up all the wines. There's plenty of time to drink them. We'll discuss any of Atwater wines that you would like, but we're going to go through. We're going to go through the main 3 that were in the club selection, and then open it up to any questions you have about any other wines. You can always in the text, if you're more comfortable in the chat, is ask questions. Wes or myself will answer it, or we'll bring it to the group towards the end, or when we're talking about certain things. If there's something you would like to need to get off your chest right away, you can interject. We keep these pretty, for the club ones, we keep them pretty laid back. So if you have questions or concerns, please let us know while we're talking. I'm going to go through our little PowerPoint that my wife Amy has always puts together for me to keep us a little bit focused, so we don't go off too many tangents. Welcome. Thank you guys for coming. Raise a glass if you got something. I appreciate all you guys. You keep Atwater going. Thanks for being here tonight, and enjoy these wines together. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, so let's get started here, because I'm just going to bring up my little PowerPoint so we can kind of go together here. From the beginning. Aha, here we are. Can you guys see that?
Got it.
Excellent.
Yes. You will, George, have to remove your thing on the right-hand side.
This guy here?
Yes.
Oh, you know, we can all
Just
see.
'cause-
Oh, this works.
Or minimize
Oh, here
it.
we go. Minimize. There we go. That better?
Yes, now it is.
Okay. I feel like I've been doing this for a long time, but I still Haven't quite got it down. And there's the 3 wines. And so we have our dry Riesling East-West vineyard. That's a single block vineyard Riesling. Our Chardonnay Reserve, which is the barrel fermented aged Chardonnay, as compared to our stainless steel Chardonnay we released earlier in the year. And one of our blends, Merlot and Cab Sav, from 21. For the other selection, which is not on here, but was offered also, was the 2020 Cab Sav. And we could talk about that too if you guys got some of that. We're going to go through these 3 first. And of course, Riesling. For all those of you done these virtuals before, we just could kind of quickly go over, just show a little card about Riesling if you don't know much about it. It's what the Finger Lakes has become well known for. And just a little common aromas and flavors there for you. We've had, it's not quite 9 acres anymore. We pulled out a little bit of it to renovate some of our vineyards. We pulled out over 1 acre the other year, which is got drainage tile and renovated. So we're a little bit down on Riesling, but it's been in our vineyards since 1988. Oops. And here's we'll start with our dry Riesling, and we'll have Wes talk about this one because this one's really interesting. It's something, this East-West has sort of become our, I wouldn't say experimental block, but it's sort of our special Riesling block that we do little special projects with. It is actually becoming, we're making more and more of some of these sort of special Riesling. But I'll leave this to Wes to talk a little bit about, so you had a big hand in this one especially. Talk us through this one, Wes.
Yeah, so the East-West Rieslings are always from, well, our East-West blocks. We have 4 of them, and
5.
Yes, 5. And this particular East-West Riesling was from our East-West 1, I think 2. And those are our original Riesling plantings, so from 1988. They're kind of lower yields, and they just kind of ripen a little differently, and their fruit profile is a little different than some of the other Rieslings on the farm. And so we tried to kind of isolate just that block because we found it interesting. And so 2021, for those of you unfamiliar, was a very wet and humid year. So disease pressure was up and Brix levels were low. Brix, for those of you who don't know, is the amount of sugar in the grapes. So the year was kind of tough. However, this wine, in my opinion, is one of probably my favorite from 2021. And it kind of just goes to show what time and lees aging can do to a wine. So the process of making this wine is we choose to whole cluster this. So this is not machine harvested. This is hand picked, and the grapes go directly into the press and are squished and pressed as a whole cluster. This kind of helps eliminate some problems you can get with damaged fruit. It's a more delicate pressing, so you get less juice and you don't extract as much. So if you have kind of tough fruit or damaged fruit, not that this necessarily was, because we whole cluster this every year regardless of the quality, but it just gives a little more delicate flavors and aromas to the wine. And we choose to barrel ferment this. So this wine is, after it's pressed, it goes from the press into a tank where it settles overnight, and all the solids that are kind of in the juice fall to the bottom. And we rack that juice off into barrels where it is spontaneous. It spontaneously ferments. Or we use a natural house culture called a pied de cuve, which is just a kind of like a sourdough starter, but with grapes. It's just a naturally naturally fermented yeast that we use to inoculate tanks with. So that's what makes this a little bit different from our other Rieslings, which are almost always tank fermented, usually inoculated with a lab yeast. They're crushed and often blended with multiple blocks, and that's great. And it's been a staple of Atwater, but we've kind of just wanted to really isolate 1 or 2 blocks and really kind of show those off. So that's what the East West Riesling kind of has become. And then as far as aging goes, it's aged 9 months in neutral French on its lees. So the lees are the expired yeasts that fall to the bottom of the tank or barrel in this case. And over time, those lees kind of start to degrade and will release chemical compounds that enhance mouthfeel as well as aroma and flavor. That really kind of helps the wine, especially in a year like 2021 that's a little light. There's a lot of rain. The fruit might not be as pronounced or as concentrated as other years. So that lees aging really helps kind of round the wine out and give it a lot of body as well as aroma and some flavor as well. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like with I agree with Wes. This is like one of my favorite dry Rieslings in a while. I really like 19, the East West we had, but this one is just so it's almost got floral notes. It's got a really creaminess from that lees aging, which you're just not used to in all the really dry Rieslings. It's just a really this is one of those Rieslings I don't even think you necessarily need food with. Like I think with the higher acidities of Riesling, sometimes they're really good food pairing wines. This I can just drink this on its own all day long. Yeah, I was really happy about this one, especially from a year like 21. But I found that even the winemakers did such a great job in 21 getting us clean fruit and making sure we got some of these. The wine that we did make is actually very good from 21. Even the reds, which in a tough year like that, the reds can sometimes they'll lighter in color, a little lower in body, but they're really aromatic and really fruit forward. So yeah, 21. Yeah, go figure. There's some grapes right there. Oh, look at them. Want to remember them down this dead of winter. And well, it looks like the dead of winter out there. I think Amy was taking some pictures.
That's probably recent, yeah.
Off the deck, yeah. Yesterday, she was taking pictures in the tasting room of some of her stuff for this little thing. She likes to take fun pictures. This just kind of highlights that bright glass with the very dark and gloomy winter day there.
Before we get on to the Chardonnay,
Yeah.
Natalie had a question. She was asking, since the vines are pretty old, when do we ever consider replanting? So the answer is yes and no. We really only choose to replant if vines have disease, so some sort of trunk disease, which is somewhat common. Especially in older vines, and you can get trunk disease from if the vine gets damaged, or you hit it with a tractor, or somehow incurs a wound of some sort. Disease can get in there, and it can mess with production levels and sometimes quality. Sometimes really sick vines will not ripen. So that's when we would go in and choose to replant. And most of the blocks, replanting for us is, and I say in the Finger Lakes in general, any cool climate, is pretty common. Just every so often you'll find a vine that's just not up to par. You just rip it out and put a new one in. And our vineyard manager, Chris, will kind of take note of which vines are not doing well. And the following year he'll order new vines, and the the vineyard crew will go out and rip those vines out and put a new one in. So it's periodic that we do replants. I'd say probably yearly to some extent. There's some sort of replants going on.
Yeah, they're always like, yeah, they're always going through and roguing, one's out. Occasionally they get damaged from, equipment, as we're going through the vineyards, things get damaged or things die, like if you had trees and things, you're going to replant over time.
For reference, there's about 1,000 vines per acre, maybe a little less than that, but 900 to 1,000 vines per acre. So it's pretty often that you'll find one of those vines is just not doing well. So replanting is not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, occasionally we'll rip things out. A full vineyard, like we've done the past couple of years, we ripped out. Actually, I just put up the map if you guys can see all that. There's the east-west on the your upper right corner there. East-west 1, and there's we got east-west 1 there and 2. And just below it on this map, which is going towards the tasting room, is N7. That was a block of Riesling we ripped out. Well, I guess almost 2 years ago, and it was struggling. It was an older block. It had some drainage issues. We ripped it all out and did new drainage tile to help divert water a little bit better. Grapes don't like to be wet, have wet roots. So we've got that all cleaned up and ready to plant. We're going to be planting LaGrind this year. Well, that's another red that we planted a couple years back, and you've tasted the rosé of, and that's going to be planted this spring. So yeah, we do move things around or occasionally have to pull things out. These are big investments when you're planting these things, these vineyards. The prep to you're talking tens of thousands of dollars to put in drainage tile. Same thing with plants. All the wires, poles, all the labor, everything, and then you got to wait 3 to 4 years before you get a crop. So anytime we move things or take things out, you are coming in for a long-term investment on that piece of vineyard.
So since drainage is going to happen downhill, I'm curious, with what you're doing to N7, will that affect your east-west blocks too?
No, the most of the drainage is going to go into areas they have designated. So the pond is a natural drainage area, so a lot of it goes into the pond, which then there's a creek that goes. You follow my cursor right down between the east-west 1 and 2. So it goes out that way. So you're basically just diverting water with a pattern of tile. They're like plastic perforated pipes that are set deep in ground, and then they'll go out to various drainage areas. You see the sort of tree-lined areas are usually designated. The reason there's trees there is because we can't plant there, and there are little ravines or gullies where water is drained off. So they're going to be diverted to that. It's very important to have proper drainage. So when you do a new vineyard, you're going to want to update your drainage if you haven't already to make sure it's ready to go. So you have many years of a good drainage since those vines are going to be there for many decades. So you want to put the money up front to get that squared away, or you're just going to have problems. So that's a good question. Definitely. And so here's the map. Just a quick, since we're here, before we go back to we move on to Chardonnay. At the top is the lake, and then all the various plantings, which will take us all the way up to the tasting room, which is right over here, the bottom right. And so we have vineyards that go all the way up there, as you guys know, bending to the tasting room. Just below or just above that S1, or below those little lines, those are solar panels for 2 goats. We're actually planting, we pulled out all S1, S2, S3, and did we do S4 too? S4, S5.
Yeah, we pulled out S4.
S4 all the way to S6. We have
All the way to S6. Yeah.
pulled out, and we're putting a new drainage tile right now, and we're going to be planting Cab Franc over there. So there's a bunch of work in the vineyards next time you guys come out. What's that? Okay. Get off of this here. Any questions on the map while I have it out? All right. I'm going to go back to our other form here. Any other questions about the Riesling or Riesling in general or that East-West Riesling? Anybody got any fun tasting notes that you want to talk about?
Just curious about the land to the south of you there, that big open patch of land.
Just to the south, yeah, that's owned by another local family.
Okay,
I'm trying to think. It's not the Wickhams. It's another
Yeah, I
local
don't
family
remember.
from around here. They own a bunch of that property all the way down to the lake.
Ah, okay.
The Shamels. There you go.
Oh, of course.
All right.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting a little of that too.
I
but,
bet. I'm like, that looks perfect. Just add right on.
we do have a little bit of property over there towards the lake. It's a little bit. It's not the best because it's really hilly and ravined. So we can't really. It's not the ideal place to plant. The stuff above it is definitely better, but unfortunately, they are not looking to.
Not looking to sell it.
No,
Too
unfortunately.
bad.
Yeah. I would like to see grapes on every time I see it. Like that could use some grapes. Yeah, it's always fun to look at maps. I love seeing all the different characteristics of the farm. I like taking the map down to the vineyard so you get a sense of everything that's there, and helps us sort of make plans about what we're going to plant and things like that too, depending on where things are. So yeah, we're going to move on to the Chardonnay. I know we didn't talk about it, but let's talk about it briefly. That Riesling was barrel fermented and barrel aged. If you're curious, is neutral barrel. So, I don't get any real oak on this. Maybe a little bit of the vanilla thing, but the Riesling, it's kind of interesting to taste that with you always assume these very barrely tastes, but that older barrels just have very little extraction from them anymore. Okay, Chardonnay. Oops. There we go. So some little notes here on Chardonnay. We have a good amount of Chardonnay, as you can see. There's a little bit in that east-west block near the Riesling, next to some Gewurz, and then we also have two big blocks of it on our south and north farm, all closer to the water. So they're the farthest blocks of grapes that we have, are some of the biggest, and they're the closest one to the lake. And they've been there for quite a few years. There's some of the earlier plantings from down by the lake there. 6.5 acres, just over 6.5 acres. A lot of older vines. So we make various things out of the Chardonnay versus our sparkling wines. We made Blancs. It's in several, some blends. It's in our barrel aged and our stainless steel Chardonnays. It's very versatile, and it grows well. It's one of the most planted grapes in the world. And I think some folks are used to these being the very California buttery, oaky. We tend to shy away from that. We're not really looking for heavy oak. We're looking to more highlight the fruit itself. And so why we do use barrels, they're going to be like the Riesling, very old barrels. It does bring in some characters, those sort of buttery characters in the fermentations, and but it's definitely more subtle, the barrel flavorings in our barrel reserves Chardonnay. Oh, was Amy holding the bottle? She was trying to get me to take some pictures yesterday, and I wasn't much in the mood. I think, and so she resorted to taking them herself, which is probably better. She looks better than me. So yeah, Wes, tell us about this one and also compared to the other Chardonnay and how it's made.
Sure. So the reserve is mostly barrel fermented. So the same way as the East West Riesling, except this was not whole cluster pressed. So this was machine harvested, went through the destemmer and went into a tank to settle, and then was racked into barrels to ferment. This was fermented with lab yeast. I don't know off the top of my head which lab yeast that was, but it was fermented in oak or in barrels, and then it was aged on its lees for 8 months or something like that, similar to the Riesling. So what we ended up doing with this was we chose to blend in some tank Chardonnay. So we also have a regular non-reserve Chardonnay, which was fermented in stainless steel tanks. And it did not go through a secondary fermentation or a bacterial fermentation called malolactic fermentation, which most of your Chardonnays from California or Burgundy will go through. There are some exceptions, of course. If you drink Chablis, sometimes you'll find some Chablis Chardonnays that don't go through malolactic. So this was a very bright, the tank fermentation was very bright, a little more citrusy and had a little more fruit to it, whereas the barrel had some oak influence and was less fruity than the tank fermentation. So we chose to kind of blend the two, along with 10% skin fermented. So every year we will take about 1 ton of Chardonnay and we will ferment it on its skins as if it were a red wine. So that process is, it doesn't get pressed, it just gets crushed into a 1 ton bin where it ferments on its skins, and that allows for some extraction and some color to come into the wine like you would see in a red wine. And we do this for our skin ferment program. We often blend skin fermented Chardonnay with Gewürztraminer or something else. Usually it's Gewürztraminer. And so the skin ferment can kind of add a little more, peachy orange, mandarin orange kind of flavors. So the three of them all work well together. This is a very classic Atwater Chardonnay kind of blend, where you blend the barrel fermented, the tank, and the skin together. Kind of makes just very well-rounded. You're kind of hitting all the points with this wine. Aged on its lees like everything else. The barrels for these were a little less neutral. In 2021, we purchased a lot of what California considers neutral, which is 3 or 4 uses. So that's a 3 to 4 year old barrel. In my opinion, it's not truly neutral like the barrels that were used in the East West. So there is definitely some barrel characteristic to this. But it kind of helps with the vintage was tough, and a little barrel can definitely go a long way. So I guess as far as barrel influence goes, this is probably the most you'd ever see from Atwater. You won't be seeing any more oak than this, if it's up to me. And I guess it is up to me. So yeah, and just as a note, the Chardonnay at Atwater is kind of in a flux state. I think it's a work in progress. So you might not see this again, or you might see an iteration with barrel and tank in it again. So just throwing that out there. Chardonnay has kind of been notoriously challenging to make in the Finger Lakes in general, and also at Atwater. It's just a very unforgiving grape, both in the vineyard and in the cellar as well. Yes, so I'm gonna look through the chat really quick because I see some questions. Lori likes it, awesome. And you like the label? Love it. The labels are also kind of in flux. We have a new label or new iteration of the current label coming out in 2023, or 2022. And Natalie's asking, why is Gewürztraminer one of the key grapes used in skin fermentation? That's a good question. It kind of, this is going to sound a little counterintuitive, but I feel like it becomes almost less Gewürztraminer-y when you ferment it on its skins, or that kind of very rose floral aroma that you get from a regular Gewürztraminer is almost, I guess, reinforced by so much fruit, a lot of orange kind of flavors and aromas in there. And it just works well for how we make skin fermented wine, which is long aging in barrel, very neutral, very old barrels. Some of them are almost as old as I am. So very old barrels on its lees. And so that it just tampers down and it becomes this really interesting and exciting grape that's not, it's in your face, but it's not overwhelming. And it blends very well with Chardonnay. And Chardonnay, at least from a skin ferment standpoint, is really great. But Chardonnay in general is a great blender. You find it in all of our, many of our wines. You'll find it in the Stonebridge. It's even in the rosé this year. The dry rosé has 20% Chardonnay in it. So it's a great blender. It's a very neutral grape, which also makes it very hard to make. Which is why you often find, such as California, who use a lot of oak to kind of give that wine something to go off of. Lees aging helps immensely. So it's a winemaker's grape, as our vineyard manager says. Chardonnay is a winemaker's grape because it's, you got to do a lot of work to it. And yeah, that's the Chardonnay.
All right, yeah. It sort of has changed quite a bit in the past couple of years, as Wes was saying. And when I started, and Vinny had been making, for over a decade, this sort of blend. It tended to be higher in skin and tank fermentation. It was more like 50, 25, 25. A little bit heavier of a style. I think we found that in the past some years, lightening up it definitely just gives it more, it just feels more playful. It was a little heavy, and plus, since we do have designated orange wines or skin fermented white wines, we wanted to be some differentiation too. I felt like the orange wines were going to be that big, bold, richly aged style. And then we didn't need a Chardonnay that was too similar to it. So, deciding the kind of wines we have, you're saying, okay, we have this one. You don't need a Chardonnay that's very similar to that too. So let's highlight something else in the Chardonnay. And so in this blend and also the stainless, you're sort of highlighting different characteristics of the Chardonnay as opposed to what we were doing before, which was a little bit more skin fermented heavy, and barrel, a little bit more barrel heavy. This one, I think we're sort of lightening that up and going for something between the stainless and the definitely the orange wine to differentiate it a bit. But yeah, we'll see how things go in the next couple of years of how the Chardonnay evolves. I was happy with what the guys did this year, especially this one. It's got a lot of character to it. Chardonnay, as Wes was saying, can be a bit tricky. And that's why you always throw a lot of things at it. But with our vineyard, we've been renovating our vineyards and everything else. I think we're going to hopefully get a lot more character off the Chardonnay we have, as well as we've done a lot of replants in our Chardonnay block, especially on our South Farm. So that as those young vines come in the next year or so, hoping to get some new influence in the vineyard too to help, spark up the Chardonnay even more. So that's exciting too.
I have to really like this one.
Awesome.
Wes, did I hear you say that this one was not malolactic fermented?
No, it was. So the regular Chardonnay that's also available,
Oh,
that is straight stainless steel, no malolactic, just aged on its lees.
'Cause I don't get the buttery flavor out of this that I would.
So we purposely, or I purposely choose, so there's a lot, just like yeast, there's malolactic bacteria strains, there's multiple of them. And so you can choose a strain that doesn't produce that buttery aroma, which is called
Oh,
diacetyl.
okay.
We purposely do that because I don't like it. At least not in Finger Lake Chardonnay. If you're gonna have that diacetyl butteriness, you've got to have the alcohol. You got to have the really ripeness to go with it, in my opinion. So I purposely avoid that to the best of our abilities.
'Cause
Yeah,
So just
it's
yeah.
unbalanced. It's just too
full
much. It
flavor, but
overpowers
it's
the wine.
not creamy to me, which I don't like that creamy, buttery.
Well, good, because we don't either. Yeah, it's kind of nice that this one doesn't have as much of that, but I think like Wes was saying, in Finger Lakes, you kind of make Finger Lakes wine, and that really heavy butteriness it overpowers the wine. Once again, I think it's sort of like having too much barrel influence. If all you taste is just barrel, all you taste is just that butteriness. It's just not very balanced. You don't
Melt a stick of butter and drink it, right?
Yeah, that's right. You pour it on your steak or something. But no, I think that's what we're trying to do here, is to highlight the grape and the region. We don't need to be highlighting oak and the malolactic as a sole star of the show. All right. Oh, there's some nice vine pictures. Oh, yes. Soon enough. Look at all that amazing. I think looks like it's next to one of the open fields that were
Yeah, it's
vineyards.
this south
Yeah,
farm. It's right
south
above
farm.
the I think that's the Zweigelt.
Yep,
Across from there you can see the
other vines.
So I don't
Yeah,
know
so
what
that
this was, but
that field, yeah. So those are one of the empty fields that we're getting ready for replanting. So it was in a cover crop, so it looks very lush there. Yeah, the hills are alive. And we'll be seeing this hopefully not too soon. It's got to wait. It's got to wait. Hopefully,
yeah, this is probably June or
Yeah,
May, late
that's
May.
right. We don't want them to get too excited with some of this warmer weather. So, all right. Oops. Oh, and I guess there's some on the tasting room on one of the new cement counters there. Yeah, Amy, once again, she was very busy yesterday taking pictures in the tasting room. And any questions about that Merlot or anything before we move on? I got all these giant glasses of wine here. It's very nice. I actually set them down about, I don't know, half hour, 40 minutes earlier. So they've opened up quite nicely. Okay, moving on. So the Merlot Cab Sauv, usually for the long time Atwater aficionados, it's usually Cab Merlot. That's usually, we put that first because it's usually heavier Cab Franc or Cab Sauv than it is Merlot. And there's also a Cab Sauv Syrah we've made plenty of times in the past. This vintage, the blend was heavy Merlot. From our doing our trials and everything else, we chose this blend, which was heavier Merlot. So thus, it took the top billing. A little bit about Merlot here. A little blackbird. That's nice. I love all the meanings behind some of these names, especially these old world names. We don't grow a lot of it. We have a small amount. It can be a little tough in the vineyard. Get some winter damage. It's often in blends we use it. We've done rosés with it. But we don't often do a varietal of Merlot, just because it actually is like Chardonnay, it's a good blender with some of these other wines. So it tends to go in that route, either in blends of rosé or as a blend with Cab Sav. That tends to be what we do with it. In 15, we made some really amazing Merlot and whole cluster Merlot. If you guys remember that, you've been around long enough. That was really amazing, but it's not a common occurrence that we make a varietal of it. Once again, we don't have a lot of it, and it tends to go towards these other blends. The idea is we're always trying to make the best wine, and it really works well with some of these blends. So we put it usually in those because that's where, for many vintages, that's where it works best. And yeah, 1.82 acres. 2011. So yeah, planted some years before I came here. And then Cab Sauvignon. I always like these cedar aspects and that sort of graphite that comes out with these. And a little been here longer. I know Vinny always thinks this is underappreciated grape in the Finger Lakes. It's pretty strong. It grows really well comparatively. We don't have as many problems with Cab Sav as some other things, and it's the latest thing we harvest usually as a varietal. It's got a long growing season, and it's got a lot of tannin, so it does really good even in a tough year. Is helping blends because that nice tannic backbone and color really works well in blends. So you'll see a lot. We don't do a whole heck of a lot of. We do more of this as a varietal than we do Merlot, but it's often the structural backbone of things like what was Big Blend, which is now Sinfoli, or things like the Cab Merlot or Cab Syrah. So we use it for those particular places. We don't. Vinny's for his has made rosé out of it. We haven't done a lot of that with it. Mostly goes into the blends that we have. But as you saw today, we had that 2020 Cab Sav also, which is pretty amazing as a varietal. 2020 was a great year, and we aged that an extra year in barrel, and it is pretty awesome. So if you guys haven't tried that yet at the tasting, or we don't have a lot of it, so definitely get that before it's gone. It is probably one of the richer of the reds that we've had in a while. 2020 was just a great vintage for that, color wise and just extraction wise. And so here we are. Oops, there it is. The Merlot Cab Sav. I keep wanting to say go the other way, but Merlot gets top billing, so I don't want to take it from that. Yeah, Wes, go on. Tell them all about it.
All right. So like I mentioned earlier, 2021 was a very wet, very humid year. And bricks were down a little bit. These actually came in a little lower than normal, but 20 and 21 are acceptable in a tough year like 2021. I think we were happy to see this. Our red wines are fermented on their skins. So in most of them, not all of them, most of them are fermented in open top bins, 1 ton bins, and they are punched down about 3 times a day. So punching down is just when as the wine starts to ferment, CO2 is released by the yeast, and so all the skins and stems rise to the top. And to keep those stems wet, we take a punch down tool and push those stems and skins back into the wine, back into solution, to help with extraction and to keep them moist. If they dry out, things will start living on them, and it's just not a good time. So we do that about 3 times a day until they're done fermenting. In this case, they fermented for 18 days, which is pretty good for us. Seems the Cab Sauv was fermented 18 days. The Merlot was only fermented for 9 days. And there's a 15% whole cluster. So whole cluster is an interesting topic, and many debate on its importance or if it has any effect on the wine in small quantities. but I'll spare you my opinion. So whole cluster in theory is supposed to, so what happens with these grapes or these clusters is you put them on the bottom of the fermentation bin. So they remain intact, and then you over the top of them, you crush the fruit on top of them. So in theory, they stay whole berries. And what happens is the berries themselves actually begin to ferment inside of the berry. It's called intracellular fermentation. And that can often give a lot more fruitiness to a wine, or just kind of bring some brightness both in the palate and on the nose. And there's also the stem inclusion of that whole cluster. So with many of all the Bordeaux varieties, so Cab Sauv, Cabernet Franc, and Merlot, we don't often include the stems. On some occasions we will, but the stems can bring in their own flavors, and they also affect the fermentation as well. They can basically affect fermentation kinetics, to keep it simple. And so, but in general, we add about 15 to 25% whole cluster, depending on the wine. Sometimes 100% if we're feeling crazy. But in this case, it was just 15%. And that just adds another dimension to the wine. It's just kind of, it's another layer of complexity. So that's why we add it in. And they're aged, once it's done fermenting, it's pressed off, and then it is put down into pretty neutral oak barrels, primarily French, to sleep for 9 months. Also on their lees, which is not always common thing to do, but we do it across our whites and our reds. And in this case, for I believe the first time ever, it is primarily Merlot instead of Cabernet Sauvignon. Merlot's a great blender. It's kind of like the red version of Chardonnay. It just blends really well, and it's very versatile. And also by itself is kind of a little lackluster. However, when it's paired with something else, it really helps bring out aromas and flavors that the 2 or 3 wines were not showing on their own. It's a team player. Merlot is a team player, and is often the backbone of a wine. In this case, it really accentuated the Cabernet Sauvignon in this wine, and really helped express that, while also bringing its own kind of characteristics to the table. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, this is I think once again from 21, I was just sort of blown away at, 18 was a tough year like this. And we had similar issues with the weather and stuff, but the 21s are so much more aromatic. Like these are just very fruity. The Sivoli's like that too. And the Cab Franc just really fruit forward from a wet year. And the Cab Sav brought some really good color to this. If you look at the color, it's not, the 2020 color, but it's a pretty nice, rich color for a tough year like 21. I was really surprised at that too. And just the sort of fruitiness. I actually kind of like some of this. There's some nice tobacco and things that are going on in this guy, and I just kind of dig the aromatics of this one. I had really good aromatics in 21. I mean, at least from my perspective, I sort of really have enjoyed a lot of these wines, which I remember at the start of 21. I think some of us were going to, we're going to be crying. We were sort of in tears as to the start of things. But once we got into it, I think we sort of knew that it wasn't as bad as we thought, and that goes to this sort of resilience. I was talking to someone today about winemakers from around the country, and you get California winemakers that might come out here, and you sort of know a cool climate winemaker. They tend to be a little. I think if a California winemaker came out in 21, they would be in a heap in the corner. Where, our winemakers are more like, this sucks, but don't worry, we'll get this taken care of. You just are a little bit more resilient to challenges, especially when it comes to these wet or sort of tough years. Yeah, just a little different. You have to look at things a little bit differently, or yeah, you will be in a fetal position in the corner somewhere sometimes. We sort of, hopefully you remember the years like 2020 that were just amazing. But once again, I think the proof is in these wines. I think we got 3 really great examples here of Finger Lakes and Atwater wines that I think, as I've sort of taken on more of the management role, I feel really proud of the team we have here that have created these. They're great, and I love bringing sharing those with people, because I think we do just keep getting hopefully better every year with what we do. And thank you, Wes, for all your work on these. They're awesome. What other questions do we have on this guy here? If there's any other flavors you guys are getting, like I said, I like that sort of tobacco-y thing. There's a lot of like great red fruit and stuff going on. But
We've had this open most of the afternoon, and as the day wears on, the flavor changes slightly.
yeah, no,
It got better the longer we waited.
Yeah, these are pretty young. All these wines. We've been.
Well, 21 to now, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty young wine. And so opening these up does help let them oxidize a little bit and get just open up. These have some years left of them. You guys have done a great job of buying all the wines up so that we are on current vintages. Back in the old days, we used to be able to keep them a couple of years in things, and they do start showing, especially on the second year, second year. But I'm, like I said, I'm pretty happy with how even as a young wine they're showing amazingly well. So these will get, as they age, will get better. And some of these tough years, we've talked about this at some of these other virtuals. Some of these wet, tough years that you were, terrified of, they end up, once again, sometimes because the higher acidities in those years tend to age real well. They sometimes outage the really good years in the Finger Lakes. So that's what's always interesting to me, is how, even how wines age too. Side note, since I got some of you guys here, and as far as aging of wines, I had a good question. We had someone in that issue with a wine in their fridge. Wine is finicky, especially for aging it. If you don't have a proper conditions, it's best to drink it. For those of us who have cellars or somewhere to age them properly, where they're under proper, cool temperatures, humidity, you definitely don't want to leave wines in your fridge standing up for long periods of time. The fridge is very dry and will dry up corks, and the wine will go bad as the cork shrinks and gets air in it. You also don't want them sitting around in your kitchen for months on end, where it's hot and lots of changing temperatures, sunlight. You want wines in your coolest place on their sides. The corks are wet and moistened by the wine itself, so they don't dry out, sort of like an old ship or an old barrel. You want that wine to be basically sheltered if you're going to keep it for any amount of time. Wine ages really quickly in adverse conditions. So the wine you thought you were going to keep for 5 years to bring for a special occasion, you got in your kitchen cabinet standing up in the back there, it's in a year it's probably not going to be any good. So just a little thing about that. We're not often exposed to that, because I think most people, you don't think about aging wines, but if you do, you definitely have to have the right conditions. So since we're talking about young wines and aging wines, I think we're going to put it's always good practice to talk about, if you're going to age it, how to age it. Any other questions?
Water doesn't do this, but that probably doesn't apply to screw cap bottles.
No, screw caps have their own thing, but you still, still temperature. If you got that thing sitting in the
I'm
sun,
just talking about standing up versus laying on their side.
yeah, standing up and
Yeah,
staying
still
inside,
you
yes.
want to keep them at a constant temperature, and I get that.
Yeah, you don't want them in the sun. Sun light will degrade wine. Any beer, all that stuff. If that's why bottles are usually dark in color, especially ones that you want age. It's meant to filter out some light, and definitely you don't want it sitting in the sun or, like I said, on a countertop. They have all those cool like display racks for wines. That's for stuff you're going to drink right away. If it's wine you really want to keep, you want to get them out of those racks and put in your basement somewhere where they can be cool and moist and kept in proper conditions. All right. Any in the chat, Wes? As we're, it's like we got quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a few. I just answered Alex. You asked a question. I don't know if that was a typo or not. You're asking about the how dry was 2021? I don't know if you meant 2022, but 21 was wet and humid. 22 was very, 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 very dry, drier than 2020. However, we got some rain in September, but in general, the reds are pretty reminiscent of 2020. I'd say they have a touch more fruit and acidity to them, but they're at least the Cab Franc and the Cab Sauv are pretty good. They remind, this Cab Franc especially reminds me of 2020. So it was a good year. I minus the crop load, which was very light, probably recordly low. It was very good. And I think that was it.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, Alex was asking about the 21s. Yeah, no, 21 was light, more fruit forward, slightly chillable, but good. Challenging year, but the wines came out all right.
A couple pictures here. There's Vinny sorting through some fruit there. Looks, I don't know if that's a Cab Sav or.
Probably, yeah, it's probably Cab Sav or Cab
Yeah.
Franc. If he's
There
up
he
there,
is.
it's his fruit.
That's right.
Sorry. Throw a little shade at Vinny.
Yeah. Well, there he is. Those warm days. Yeah. Oh yeah. Here, right. Another artistic shot of a glass. Amy really took every corner of the tasting room with a glass, it looks like. But you can see, yeah, nice rich color there in the
Where's
pale.
the snow in all those pictures?
There is nothing, no snow. Yeah, it's been dry. We were supposed to have a storm last week, and by golly, they hyped it up like we were going to be, stuck under feet of snow, and nothing. Oh, here's a nice picture. We did some those educational wine tastings. Our tasting room manager, Sam, if you've been in the tasting room, Sam has been started doing these this year. We did our first one, which was Pinot Noir, and that was really fun, really nice, small, intimate. He brought a series of Pinot Noirs from around the world that he selected to highlight different regions and characteristics, as well as Atwaters. So the idea was to taste several different Pinot Noirs.
Those are all Pinot Noir in that picture?
Yeah, and
Different
discuss.
color.
Yeah, it really is quite unique, and sort of discuss Pinot Noir, discuss the regions they're from, and some of the characteristics that make Pinot Noir unique, and have a nice little fun discussion. It was a nice fun night. So if any of you guys are interested, we got a Cab Franc one coming up on Saturday, and then I think almost every weekend or every other weekend we have one. There's a Cab Franc one, there's a Riesling one, there's a sparkling one. I can't remember, or there's an orange wine one. So if any of you guys are in town or want to come in town, definitely check them out. They're fun. We're only
If
doing.
you create a way to teleport, we'll be happy to join you.
I know. Well, I can tell you a couple places where you can stay at. There's a nice B&Bs. But yeah, we're having these will be going through March and into April. Definitely, I'm excited for the orange wine one, of course, because I'm orange wine nerd. But the Cab Franc one this weekend should be awesome too, because once again, next to Riesling, Cab Franc is just made for the Finger Lakes. So it'll be fun to taste some of these other Cab Francs, because we don't often always get to taste lots of outside varieties. So it was fun to taste these, because I came in there just to taste. I didn't stay for the whole thing. I came in there to drink, and so I did drink some of these, and they were all so unique from the region. So if you guys are in town, check them out. We got several of these going on. So and my wife Amy was there. She's funny thing is, she's not a big wine person. She likes sparkling wine. But she really enjoyed this. One of the wines, she's like, I don't really like this kind of wine, Pinot Noirs, but she's like, one of them I drank the whole glass of. I'm like, oh boy. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, here's some. What is it bottling here? Must be some Riesling. Amy put in a picture of our bottling line
Yeah.
with our awesome orange or yellow walls. Don't ask me why we chose yellow for it. I think the idea was to brighten up this small room. To make it more cheery, but it's a little bit intense. It's a little bit bonkers, that yellow room. Reminds me of like a 70s kitchen. Yeah, my parents had a bright or a sort of olive green and yellow kitchen. Yeah, reminds me of my childhood. And then yes, another beautiful picture of the tasting room. Our very humble tasting room. I like this perspective because you can, looking at it, you can see all the different additions all in one photo. There's one building, there's another building attached to it, then there's another little piece attached to it, and then another little piece. It's very homey, very Finger Lakes. And yeah, very farmer, old school. Well, a little subtle sunset here. And there we are. Thank you. Oh, look, Amy even put this sweet QR code.
Yeah.
Your club members, you're already signed up to the newsletter, but hurry, take your pictures of it, scan it, join if you haven't. Yeah, so thank you guys. We got all this. Definitely keep up with all the club information. You guys get the email, so you see most of it. But we do have a lot of events going on too, even in the winter here. So if you're around or think you might be around, check us out Thursday nights, which is going on right now. I'm missing it. They're having Lewiston, who's an awesome singer-songwriter. He's down there singing right now.
I like that.
Any other questions about any other wines you might have? Anything you want to spout about these wines, other wines you've tried, or just any other questions about winemaking? We always love to talk about winemaking. So anything else, Wes? Anything else in the chat?
I don't think so.
Okay. Anybody else? Spew out any questions?
Congratulations on your promotion, Wes.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, it's I'm really excited to have them to start. It's fun to have a young fellow here to sort of shake things up. And he's, what's great about having Wes here is he's worked with us 4 years, so he's worked with both me and Vinny. I started under Vinny too. I was started assistant winemaker here. So the sort of continuity here between winemakers is really unique. And for me, choosing Wes to be promoted was part of that. He's been with us. Our influences here. He's shared in our winemaking styles. He has his own too, but he shares the same philosophy. I believe in making the best wine and continuing that sort of trajectory of what we've been doing here already. Keeping the tradition of Atwater, but also hopefully bringing in some new ideas and bringing some new exciting wines in here too. And that's what I'm sort of most excited about. I get to keep a hand on things, but he's going to be the main focus here in the cellar. I guess that's a good thing about being the boss now. But although I don't get to clean tanks anymore. Although some days I wish I was in one of those
You can
tanks.
clean those cubes tomorrow if you want.
Well,
While I'm
no, maybe not the
bottling.
cubes. No, maybe not. On some of those tough days, I feel like I should be in a tank. It'd
Sure.
be better to be in a tank alone.
It is. It is.
Okay, any other questions, concerns? If not, you guys probably have 3 bottles of wine open, so hopefully you guys all enjoy the rest of them. Cork them and put them in your fridge if you're not going to finish them off, or call over your neighbors if you're so inclined, or family members. Well, maybe not them.
Maybe not them.
But enjoy the rest of you guys' evening. I really appreciate you guys being members and all you do to help keep us afloat, and that you appreciate our wines. Hopefully we'll see you guys all again, especially in the tasting room. I love seeing you guys here too, Paul, but it's
We're
always great
coming
to
in
have
June. Middle of
Alex.
June.
When are you coming in, Alex?
We need the teleporter as well, quite honestly.
Oh,
It is really quite tight, but we'd love to come out. We'll try to come out this summer when the weather's a little better.
All right.
Wouldn't that be
Definitely
nice to be able to
Still
just
happening in
teleport
June,
up
or
to
they
the wine
gonna be
and
done soon?
home, right?
Teleportation would be cool, although I've read some horror stories about what it would actually be like, so I'm not quite sure I want it.
And we wouldn't want to come if we couldn't take wines home. So the wines need to be
That is-
teleportable.
They need to be teleported too. Yeah, that's right.
So
right?
true.
I mean, so George, are there any library wines that we should be checking out before they're all gone?
Yeah,
I like
there's
it.
some on the website still. There's only a case or two of the Cab Franc 2016 that we had
Ooh.
for the wine club. So it's been here in the tasting room. There's still a few. There's still, I don't know, maybe about 8 or so cases of the 2015 Big Blend, which is showing really well. That's in the tasting room also, but it's also online for club too. If you guys want to order, send it to you. Actually, we were just talking about that today. We have a bunch of wines in the cellar that are, they older vintages that we only have a case or 2 of. We're going to start sort of putting those up too. It's always tough to be able to put those online and ship them too, but we can't do that. I think we have a huge list of wines now. If you guys haven't been in recently, there's a good amount of wines on the normal list and on the club list. So we have quite a bit on list right now. It's more than we've had in a bit. But I think what we're going to do in the next months coming up to the next wine club shipment is in the tasting room and maybe online, we're going to have like limited amounts of some of these wines from the cellar, 2010, 2012s, especially some of the big blends we're going to put out there. So those will be out in limited amounts. So if those come on the website, once again, there's probably only a couple cases of it. We're going to put the amounts on there, so and put emails out. But yeah, hopefully we'll have some of those out too. Our little
If we
cellar
order
here.
now, can you hold them for a month
Yeah.
or two till we get there?
Oh, we'll see. Our cellar's small, so I just went down there today. I'm like, oh my, like I can't put anything else down here. We need to start moving out the older stuff. So keep an eye out for it. I got to go down there and sort through everything too, and that takes some time for me amongst everything else. But yes, Alex, thank you. We will have some of these older wines that I need to start getting out to you guys. It was fun to bring out the 16 and 15 because they're really showing really well right now. So I know, and I think I also have like a Cab Sav Merlot that's from 15 that we have like 15 or 20 cases of. That'll probably
I
be out
love
the
that.
next. Yeah,
I'd
I'm
like
sure
that.
you do too. Yeah. So there's a bunch of fun little things I need to sit down and go over and start bringing out of the cellar and stuff. So yeah, keep an eye out. They'll be out there. I'm going to put them online too. A lot of these smaller batches I would just bring in the taste room, but it's not also fair for you guys out in the world. So I'm going to put them on there and get them going. We're actually updating some of our website stuff. We're getting our new point of sale is being updated. And so as soon as the new modern point of sale we have goes up, it's going to change our wine club. It's actually going to make it a lot better. They've revamped the entire system. So I'm hoping for wine club members, we're going to have a whole separate page for you guys to go sign into, and lots of fun things on there just for you guys. So in the next couple of months, we're going to be learning all the new things to do with that. And it should be a little bit more intuitive also. Amanda will be going over for you when it comes. But that stuff's going to come up too, coming up towards summer here. So I think that'll help me put a lot of that stuff on that weren't all able to put up before online, and allow you guys to order, put it on the order stuff for your club shipments too, a little bit more easily. We had some issues where we couldn't always put a lot of small batches because it wouldn't take it out of the system. So if we put like 10 cases of something on the club orders shipments, there was no way for us to limit it. So if everybody decided to order it all at once, we wouldn't be able to put it up there because
We'd be overselling it.
we'd be overselling it. So the new system hopefully will help us do a little bit more things that we had before. So
I'm looking forward to it.
yeah,
sounds good.
anything from you,
Yeah,
Amanda?
sounds great.
Since Amanda's here, is there anything for the club that you want to talk about?
No, just on that note, if there is anything that you ever see missing from a club quarter that you're like, oh, I absolutely love that wine and I don't see it, reach out to me. Because like George said, sometimes when we get limited on wines, we'll put them aside for the club members. But I can't put them out there because it doesn't take it immediately out of inventory. So let me know and I can say, oh yeah, I can sneak you 4 bottles of it or something like that. So I
Your
can
cat wants
customize for you on
attention.
my end.
Yeah, it's whipping you in the face.
Yes, I have a kitten and the kitten was getting a little too aggressive. So my older cat regulated her and then sat on my lap. She's like, nope, this is my time.
Yeah.
Oh, Gosnells.
Nice.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
like it?
Yeah, actually it's nice because it brightens up the background here. I didn't have a lot of light in this office, and so I got for
Can't
all
see
you guys
the
out there,
AD though.
the Gosnells made me this sweet. Yeah, you can't see, it's a little washed out. Sweet lamp with one of these giant old 2004 Cab Merlot bottles. So I have that in my office now. Thank you guys. It's awesome.
You're welcome. That's a bummer you can't see the AV in the
Yeah,
lid.
they have a screen printed like AV logo on it, but it's so bright that it's I can see it really well, but
You can see it in person, but
in
not
person,
here.
but on the computer it's a little bit too bright. Yeah. So thank you guys. Brighten
You're
up
welcome. I'm glad you
my
like it.
little office here. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna go check out, see if there's any music left. Oh, although it looks dead. No, it looks like it's shut down. Damn it. Well, I guess I got to drink the rest of these glasses of wine. I poured these giant glasses here, so they looked really good, but I guess I got to finish all of them.
Oh,
Yeah.
Shame.
I already told my
Shame.
wife she's gonna have to pick me up tonight.
Right.
I had to our Riesling bubble, if you guys know the bubble, we finished it today, and I had to drive it over to Lakewood. They have a special bottling line that carbonates it. So I've got the trailer on the truck, and Wes filtered it, put it into those big cube tanks, and I drove it across the lake. It's in a tank now, and they're going to be bottling it over the weekend here. And the new vintage will be hopefully at least to our warehouse on Tuesday. So in a couple months here, you'll be seeing that probably for the next club shipment. The new bubble will arrive. So that was exciting. So my truck has this giant trailer attached to it. So I don't think I'm going to get that in my driveway. So Amy's going to come pick me up. And that gives me a chance to drink the rest of all these wines too until the morning. So thank you again, guys. I'm sure I'll see all you guys hopefully in the summer here or coming up soon. Let Amanda know if you guys need anything. She's always there on email or phone. if there's something you're looking for or any issues you're having. And yeah, hopefully we guys see you all pretty soon.
Great.
And I hope you guys enjoyed the wines.
Great, thank you.
Always.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Wes. See you tomorrow.
Of course.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.